suspicious flight pattern breached the operational airspace of the United States Marines in close proximity to the Venezuelan coast. What followed was a swift and precise surgical maneuver. Marine Corps attack helicopters intercepted the device and shot it down in a matter of seconds. But there is much more behind this incident than a simple downed drone. What happened that morning set off alarms across the continent and left Venezuela and the world in shock. Because this event was not an accident, it was a message. What you are about to discover redefines the rules of the air game in the Western Hemisphere. The incident. It all began in the early hours of November 3, 2025 at the Sotocano Air Base in Honduras. The Marine Corps was maintaining a joint deployment with forces from the U.S. Navy. At that moment, an ANTPS-80 gyro-mobile radar detected a small object moving at over 120 kilometers per hour with an unusual thermal profile and a direct trajectory towards the northern Caribbean at an altitude of less than 300 meters at an altitude. The strangest thing was its electronic silence. The drone did not emit an identifiable signal, did not respond to radar interrogations, and appeared to have a reduced signature as if it had been designed to avoid detection. For the first few minutes, the operators thought it was a civilian drone diverted by the wind, but the situation quickly changed. When the object crossed the temporary no-fly line established by the Southern Command, the protocol was activated. Two AH-1Z Viper helicopters from Marine Attack Squadron 367 took off with clear orders, intercept, and assess the threat. What those pilots saw through their infrared sensors left them frozen. The drone was not a simple commercial quadcopter. It measured more than 3 meters in wingspan with a carbon fiber structure and a dual electric propulsion system. Its design was reminiscent of the Iranian Moharir 6 soft top, but with modifications that pointed to adapted local engineering. The pilot of the first Viper reported that the drone maneuvered with abnormal agility, executing tight turns at low altitude. They tried to communicate through the International Emergency Channel, but there was no response. In a matter of seconds, the group commander made the decision. Rule of engagement confirmed. Fire authorized. An AIM-9 Sidewinder missile was released, guided by infrared. Impact with surgical precision. The drone disintegrated in a silent blaze over the Caribbean Sea, about 70 kilometers from the Venezuelan coast. The operation lasted less than 5 minutes. The radar confirmed the total elimination of the target, but the real mystery began later. The pieces of the drone. A maritime recovery team was dispatched from the amphibious assault ship USS Bataan, which was on joint patrol with Task Force 45, and what they found floating on the water raised more questions than answers. Comme was. Fragments of an unmarked fuselage. Circuits sealed with resin, and most disturbingly, a high-resolution electro-optical camera with Russian-made components. Intelligence analysts were quick to put 2 and 2 together. In recent months, U.S. agencies had warned of the increasing flow of Iranian and Russian military technology to Venezuela. According to initial reports, this drone could have been a hybrid model assembled on Venezuelan territory with secretly imported parts. The objective was to spy on U.S. patrol routes and gather information on naval maneuvers taking place in the Caribbean under Operation Vigilant Freedom. However, the most disturbing finding was an encrypted transmission module compatible with frequencies used by the Russian Kosuka-4 intelligence system. A detail that set off alarms at the Pentagon. This was not a homemade drone, but an advanced platform with external support. The remains were transported to Cherry Point Air Force Base in North Carolina for analysis. In less than 48 hours, the preliminary report was overwhelming. The drone had software architecture adapted to long-range guidance systems, possibly connected to foreign observation satellites. In other words, someone was watching the United States movements in the region very closely. Immediate reaction. The Southern Command raised the alert level throughout the Caribbean. Within hours, the helicopter carriers USS Waspi and USS YI Mojima received new orders to intensify surveillance in the air corridors near the Venezuelan and Colombian coasts. The Secretary of Defense, in a press conference from the Pentagon, was quick to speak out. Any attempt to violate our airspace or compromise the security of our forces will be responded to with the utmost determination. Meanwhile, in Caracas, the Venezuelan government denied any involvement and described the incident as an unjustified provocation. However, intelligence reports from several Western agencies indicated that the model of the downed drone matched those seen in joint maneuvers between Venezuela and Iran the previous year. At sea, tensions escalated to a fever pitch. Submarines, frigates, and air units began moving like chess pieces. The message was clear. The United States would not allow any threat to its forces, no matter which country was behind it. The power of the H-1C Viper. To understand the magnitude of the event, we must talk about the protagonists of the downing, the AH-1C Viper helicopters of the Marine Corps, the DC Swimming Corps. These beasts of the air are not simple attack machines. They're authentic combat platforms that combine precision, speed, and devastating power. The Viper is the evolution of the legendary Cobra, designed to operate in the harshest environments. With two T700 GE E401C engines and a maximum speed exceeding 400 kilometers per hour, it can climb, turn, and attack with an agility that very few helicopters in the world can match. It is equipped with Hellfire missiles, guided rockets, and 20mm rotary cannons capable of destroying armored vehicles, or light aircraft, But in this case, its true power was its sensor system, the long bow radar and the FLIR camera that detect targets invisible to the naked eye, even at night or in tropical storms. The pilots of Squadron 367 knew what they were doing. Their training combines real combat with state-of-the-art simulators, and each maneuver is calculated to the millimeter. When they received the order to fire, there was no hesitation, only precise execution. This shoot-down demonstrated once again why the Vipers are considered the most versatile attack helicopters on the planet and why the U.S. Marines continue to be the most feared reaction force in the world. An incident that revives old ghosts. Beyond the technical aspect, this event has a political background that many prefer to ignore. In recent years, relations between Washington and Caracas have oscillated between distrust and confrontation. The United States has repeatedly denounced the presence of Russian and Iranian military advisors in Venezuelan territory, which has heightened regional attention with the downing of the drone. Far from being an isolated incident, is interpreted as a direct warning. A reminder that the Caribbean skies are under constant surveillance and that any attempt at espionage or provocation will be neutralized without hesitation. Sources from the Department of Defense confirmed that since the incident, at least 3 new unidentified flights have been recorded in the vicinity of Puerto Cabello and La Horquilla, both places linked to Venezuelan military operations. The United States did not respond publicly, but internally the order was clear. Maintain the rules of engagement ready and the capacity for immediate response. The priority is to protect the deployed forces and ensure that no hostile country manages to obtain strategic information about U.S. movements. Adividas. A response that surprised the world. The news spread like wildfire on social media and international media. Headlines in Europe and Latin America described the event as an unprecedented aerial escalation between the United States and Venezuela. However, the official U.S. version stressed that the drone was shot down in international waters, not within Venezuelan airspace, which legitimizes the action under collective defense rules. But the fact that few know is that the drone was intercepted just 70 kilometers from the Venezuelan coastline, a geopolitically sensitive point. That distance is enough to generate opposing interpretations. For Washington, a neutralized threat. For Caracas, a violation of sovereignty. In the meantime, military analysts warned that this could be just the first episode in a series of electronic and intelligence provocations that seek to test the limits of the U.S. response. And pay attention, because what you will discover in the second part of the video could completely change the perception of this incident. New leaks from the Pentagon suggest that the downed drone was not the only one operating in the area. Some reports point to a much larger and more sophisticated surveillance network than previously believed. But before I tell you that, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because a very important development is coming that will reveal the true intentions behind this attack. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. The echo in the Pentagon. After the downing, analysts at the Southern Command sent a confidential report to Washington. It noted that the operation had been an absolute tactical success, but also warned that the incident showed a worrying pattern: increased hostile surveillance activities near U.S. shipping lanes. The question many are now asking is, who was really behind that drone? Was Venezuela acting on its own, or were foreign powers testing U.S. defenses from the shadows? Although there has been no official confirmation, a source at the State Department leaked that the drone's telemetry matched frequencies used in Iranian-made communication systems. This fuels the theory that the drone could have been part of a technological cooperation program between Tehran and Caracas, something that had already been warned about by intelligence agencies since 2023. What is clear is that the United States does not intend to lower its guard. Every piece recovered, every bit of information extracted from the fuselage is being analyzed to understand the extent to which its rivals have managed to introduce hostile technology into the region. And in the midst of this new race for dominance of Latin American airspace, one thing is becoming evident. The skies are once again a chessboard of power. In the days following the downing, the laboratories of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, were immersed in a race against time. The fragments of the drone were analyzed with high precision, forensic techniques. Every chip, every microcontroller, every weld was scanned for technological traces. What they discovered left the Pentagon breathless. The components did not belong to a single country. There were parts from Iran, Russian electronics factories, and, surprisingly, some Chinese satellite positioning modules. That meant one thing: cooperation between adversaries. As one intelligence officer put it bluntly, we're not looking at a Venezuelan drone, we're looking at a project assembled with parts from 3 enemies of the United States. And that changes everything. The discovery set off alarms at the highest levels of the Defense Department. The most widely accepted theory is that the drone was part of an electronic reconnaissance network seeking to map U.S. Navy patrol routes, taking advantage of its proximity to Venezuelan waters. According to leaked reports, there was a possibility that electromagnetic interference tests were being conducted against U.S. radars, which would explain the erratic flight pattern and evasive maneuvers detected by the helicopters. In other words, the incident was no accident. It was a test, a carefully designed provocation to gauge the Marines' reaction. Washington understood the hidden message immediately. These types of operations usually have a dual purpose: to gather intelligence and send a symbolic message. In this case, the message was clear. We know where they are, and we can observe them. But the United States did not stand idly by. In a matter of hours, the Southern Command reinforced its presence in the Caribbean with P-8A Poseidon patrol aircraft and MQ-9 Reaper drones, specialized in long-range maritime surveillance. The response was silent but forceful. Reconnaissance missions multiplied, covering every air corridor and every strategic point along the northern coast of South America. In a few days, American technological superiority was felt once again. A military analyst at the United States Naval Institute summed it up bluntly: no one plays with the Caribbean skies without Washington knowing about it, especially when the Marines are involved. The operation was so fast that it took Venezuelan intelligence services by surprise. While the government in Caracas tried to deny its involvement, U.S. satellites recorded unusual movements at military bases near Maracay and Punto Fijo y Dijo. The data indicated that several similar drones had been hastily removed from their hangars and transported by land to wooded areas in the interior. It was clear that someone wanted to cover their tracks, the shadow of Iran and Russia. Behind this technological puzzle, there is a pattern that has been worrying Washington for years: the silent expansion of Iranian and Russian influence in Latin America. Since 2021, Iran has supplied drones to allied countries in the Middle East and Africa. Now, intelligence reports indicate that Iranian engineers have visited Venezuela on at least 3 occasions to advise on the development of unmanned aerial vehicles. For its part, Russia has provided communication systems and technical training, taking advantage of its long-standing relationship with the Venezuelan regime. This triangle of Tehran, Moscow, and Caracas represents a strategic threat to the balance of power in the hemisphere. A former CIA officer speaking on condition of anonymity said that the downed drone could be just the tip of the iceberg. If they manage to assemble an operational hybrid model, it means there is an active development laboratory on Venezuelan soil. That raises the threat to a new level. And as this information was revealed, the U.S. Congress called an emergency session to discuss the incident. Lawmakers from both parties agreed on one thing: it was time to reinforce the U.S. presence in the Caribbean to prevent hostile powers from continuing to advance in the region. The underlying message was unequivocal: the freedom of the seas and skies of the Western Hemisphere is not up for negotiation. The Marine Corps as an expeditionary force has historically been the first line of response for the United States in international crises. Its doctrine is based on speed, mobility, and the ability to operate in any environment. In this incident, the Marines once again demonstrated their lethal effectiveness. The pilots of the 367th Squadron flying the AH-1Z Viper acted without margin for error. Detecting, intercepting, and neutralizing a threat in less than 5 minutes requires not only skill but also near-perfect coordination between air, sea, and land. The exercises conducted in the previous months during Operation Vigilant Freedom were essential. They tested protocols for detecting hostile drones, integrating mobile radars, and joint tactics with the Navy. That's why when the drone appeared, the system reacted automatically. There was no improvisation but execution, and the result was a clear message to any adversary who thinks of challenging the security of U.S. forces: they will be detected and eliminated without hesitation. Venezuela's reaction. The Venezuelan government responded with a defiant speech. In a national broadcast, the defense minister described the incident as an imperialist aggression and assured that the drone did not belong to his air force. However, he did not offer evidence or allow international inspections to corroborate his version. State media launched alternative theories. Some claimed that the drone was of Colombian origin, others that it was a weather device that had been diverted by the wind, but none of the explanations were convincing. Day by day, a growing number of nations allied with the United States offered official backing to the Pentagon's version of events. Canada, the United Kingdom, and Brazil issued statements reaffirming Washington's right to defend its deployed forces. Meanwhile, videos of military personnel transporting boxes shaped like fuselages in unmarked trucks began circulating on Venezuelan social media. Everything indicated that the government was trying to hide the extent of the incident. The strategy of deterrence. The United States knows that its greatest strength lies not only in its weapons, but also in its deterrence capacity. Whenever a rival power tries to put it to the test, the response must be as clear as it is forceful. That's why, days after the downing, the Southern Command discreetly deployed an entire amphibious strike group to the Caribbean. Ships, helicopters, and reconnaissance aircraft began operating in a coordinated network to ensure absolute control of regional airspace. Among them was the helicopter carrier USS Kearsarge, which served as a command platform for new surveillance missions. Its presence sent an unmistakable message. The skies of the Western Hemisphere are under American protection. A Defense Department official explained it this way. The key is for our adversaries to understand that any attempt to violate our security zones will be met before they even cross the line. And this is where a crucial piece of information that few people know comes in. But before you know that, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned, because what follows explains why this shootdown could be just the beginning of a new era of aerial surveillance and counterintelligence. The new air defense doctrine. The Pentagon is implementing a new strategy based on the integration of sensors, drones, and manned aircraft known as Layered Adaptive Air Defense, TAC. This program seeks to allow every unit from a ground-based radar to a Viper helicopter to share information in real time with the rest of the system. Thanks to this network, the hostile drone was detected before it could get dangerously close. Information concerning their flight path was sent immediately to the interceptor helicopters, which were already prepared to act. This perfect coordination between technology and human training is what keeps the United States one step ahead. Rivals may copy designs, manufacture drones, or practice maneuvers, but integrated technological superiority remains a field that few can even touch. The lesson of this incident is clear. The future of combat will not be decided by who has more weapons, but by who can connect each point on the battlefield faster. And on that point, the US already has an edge. The incident soon had global repercussions. In Moscow, Kremlin spokesman accused Washington of causing instability in the region. In Tehran, state media celebrated the event as a demonstration of the awakening of the Latin American peoples. But behind these statements lies the real concern. The drone was shot down without any of the countries being able to intervene or prevent it. The efficiency of the American system was a direct blow to its technological credibility. Even in Europe, defense experts applauded the American response. Analysts at the European Aviation Safety Center said the shootdown sets a precedent and demonstrates that the Marines are capable of operating with surgical precision in complex scenarios while maintaining proportionality and legality of their actions. In the military world, that kind of efficiency sends a powerful message, a dangerous precedent. While the U.S. response was legitimate, the incident leaves open a troubling question. What will happen if it happens again? Could another incident of this type escalate into a direct confrontation? History teaches that wars sometimes begin with misunderstandings in the skies. And while no one wants open conflict in Latin America, the buildup of tensions can turn into a powder keg. That's why the United States has begun deploying advanced detection systems in the region, reinforcing strategic bases in Puerto Rico, Curacao, and Honduras. The goal is clear: to ensure that any unidentified object is intercepted before it can pose a threat, in the words of General Kenneth McKenzie, former commander of Central Command, PNB. The future of air security will not only be about shooting down threats, but also anticipating them before they appear on radar. The downing of the drone off the Venezuelan coast was not only an act of defense, but a statement of principle. The United States reaffirmed its commitment to the stability of the hemisphere and made it clear that its forces will act with precision and without hesitation when security is at stake. The AH-1Z Viper helicopters that participated in the operation have already become a symbol of deterrence and air power. Their silhouette over the Caribbean represents constant vigilance and the promise that the skies will continue to be free of hostile threats. For Venezuela, the episode was a wake-up call. For the United States, it was a tactical and moral victory. And for the world, it was a demonstration that American technological and military leadership remains the standard by which all others are measured. Conclusion. In short, what happened that dawn of November 3rd was not just a confrontation, it was the reflection of a new geopolitical chessboard that is being shaped above our heads. Foreign powers, Thomas attempted to challenge American hegemony in its own neighborhood, but the response was swift, precise, and devastating. The drone went down, but its fall sent a message louder than any diplomatic speech. The skies of the Caribbean belong to freedom, and they will be protected by those sworn to defend it. The men and women of the Marine Corps who participated in this operation demonstrated once again that discipline, courage, and preparation can defeat any attempt at espionage or provocation. And now the world is watching. Because if this incident has made anything clear, it is that the United States will never let anyone, not Russia, not Iran, or any other actor, test its commitment to the security of the Western Hemisphere. The next time a drone attempts to cross those skies, you will know what awaits it. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and share, because here at Altura Poderosa, we continue to reveal the most shocking secrets of American military aviation. And remember, the skies do not forgive mistakes, but they do reward preparation. See you in the next video, and until then...